Hello and welcome to this edition of Viewpoint. Today I'll be talking to Dr. Malcolm Ward, who's the chairman of the Dispensing Doctors Association, and Dr. David Baker, who is the association's secretary. First of all, Dr. Ward, the Dispensing Doctors Association, I would imagine most GPs and other doctors would know about it already, but is that right?
I would hope so. Basically, the Dispensing Doctors Association has been around for about 15 years, and we represent the interests of dispensing doctors and their patients. There are about 4,400 dispensing GPs in the UK, and about 2,000 of those are actually members of our association, and would like to see all those GPs become members. And we actually dispense to a population of about 3.1 million. We provide a lot of services for our members. One of our main interests is to promote high standards. Quality issues are very important to us with regard to service we promote, and we have a quality commitment guidelines which we have for dispensing doctors, and that covers the full spectrum of the service provision. We also are involved in dispenser training. We have a training programme that we work in affiliation with the People's College in Nottingham, and it's a distance learning course to ensure that the dispensers have appropriate standards, and we are working to, although it's not compulsory at this stage in time, we're working to try and get the majority of dispensers in this country affiliated to the course. We also have a quarterly journal called Dispensing Doctor, and that's run or edited by professional journalist Mandy Galloway, and this covers all sorts of issues that are relevant to dispensing practice, and we try and keep doctors abreast of current issues. We also have a website that's run by Alan Tennant, a board member, and we get a lot of hits on a daily basis, and that can be accessed on www.dispensingdoctor.org, all lowercase, and this has really sort of widened our access to our members and the wider public. All sorts of organisations look to us. We also have representation at national level at the General Practitioners Committee via the Rural Practice Subcommittee, and I'm a member there, and that gives us a mouthpiece, an avenue to communicate direct to the negotiators, the professional negotiators to government, so we make sure that rural issues and dispensing issues come to the fore. We also have a seat on the Royal College of General Practitioners Rural Group, and we communicate with many other professional bodies, including the PPA and the Prescription Pricing Authority, the PSNC, the Pharmacists Negotiating Committee. And most of all, we provide a daily service for providing advice to members. They can access any member of the board, and we frequently get phone calls, faxes, emails, and we help on all sorts of problems that can occur in dispensing practice. And finally, we have an annual general meeting, which is well attended, and we have a super venue this year in November, the 11th and 12th of November at York, and we have some great speakers. We have Charles Kennedy, Liberal Democrat leader. We have Professor Mike Pringle, chairman of the Royal Council of General Practitioners. We have Hamish Meldrum, joint deputy chairman of the GPC, and we have Mike Taylor, who is the chairman of the Small Practice Association. And we have John Wynne Jones, who is director of the new director of the Institute of Rural Health, which is an interesting development and doing a lot of research into rural health. So we'd be looking forward to that. We hope we get a good attendance this year. I'm sure we will.
Well, there's no doubt that you're taken seriously with all those names in there. Dr. Baker, could you move on now to perhaps something more political? The NHS plan, which has recently been announced.
Yeah.
Does the association have a view on the plan?
Well, it's very interesting. The NHS plan is conspicuous by its absence of any reference to dispensing doctors whatsoever. The thing that concerns the association is the somewhat veiled attack on the single-handed doctor, and quite a lot of our members are single-handed, or certainly in small practices. And there is a veiled threat in the plan that their days are numbered. But in rural areas, there probably is no substitute. There's no way that you can have more than one doctor because the money just isn't there to pay them. But
And
that is the only thing in the plan that actually impinges sort of directly on dispensing doctors.
on that very subject, are rural doctors mainly affected by this supposed move? Where they would have to dispense? I mean, they would have to be dispensing doctors, wouldn't they?
It's very unusual for a doctor to be forced to dispense for his patients. It's usually a conscious choice. Although in the most rural areas of the country, there is no doubt that dispensing has to take place because pharmacies just wouldn't be viable in the rural areas. And obviously in the rural areas there's a smaller population, therefore you have a smaller practice list size, therefore smaller practices, and that's how the single-handedness comes into
yes. Well, Malcolm, do you have a relationship with pharmacists on that basis then?
Yes, there is an issue. There has been a long-running history of conflict between pharmacists and dispensing doctors, predominantly because they are seen as treading on others' territories. And there has been significant problems in the regulations that have not helped that and has inflamed the conflict. But fortunately, we're in a situation now that we have got round the table the GPC leaders, the pharmacist leaders from the PSNC and myself representing the DDA. And after 3 years, would you believe, of protracted but very constructive dialogue, we've actually resolved this, we feel. And the next step is to go to Parliament, and hopefully if they agree with what we have, the accord we've struck, then this problem will be resolved, which will give a great platform, hopefully, for harmony with the interprofessional harmony, which will bode well, hopefully, for the NHS plan. I would like to just come back to one point about PMS, personal medical services in relation to the NHS plan, just to warn dispensing doctors that there could be a dispensing problem here. We don't really know the ramifications of taking dispensing into PMS. There may be some legal ramifications, and we would advise at this stage in time that those GPs that are going into PMS should keep dispensing out of the framework at this stage in time.
Well, David, moving on from there to price regulation of generics, does the association take a view of that?
Yes, we do. The government, as you know, has introduced maximum price regulation for generic drugs. And whereas we think all the problems have been covered, we would like to know from dispensing doctors if they have problems being unable to obtain drugs at the maximum price or less. If they're having to pay more, then we want to know about it so we can take it up with government.
Yeah. Malcolm, what about PCGs and PCTs?
Interesting. Basically, what PCTs and PCGs, certainly PCGs, has done is to produce pressure to produce conformity. Prescribing patterns have varied widely, as have referral patterns, and what seems to be emerging is that through the use of the PCG interventions of getting doctors around, looking at prescribing policies, coming up with treatment protocols, that we're getting a more stereotyped and stabilised prescribing behaviour. I mean, up till now, most of it has been evolved, I suspect, really around cost control. But with the arrival of the National Service Frameworks, particularly with regard to cardiovascular disease, I think there will be some pressures actually to push budgets up, because certainly if you look at things like the lipid-lowering drugs, the cholesterol-lowering drugs, these are very extensive items, and under the NSF framework, they're quite stringent, and most doctors, I suspect, are under-treating.
Well, that leads on to pricing, very, very briefly. Is pricing where it is now acceptable?
Well, it will remain to be seen with regard to the generic problem. It certainly looks a lot better, and we hope that we're not going to have the category D crisis that we had in the past. It remains to be seen, but I'm reasonably optimistic that the revised setting of the prices, because initially they were far too low, but the revised settings for generic prices are more realistic, and I'm optimistic for the coming year.
Dr. Malcolm Ward, Dr. David Baker, thank you very much for joining us today. That was Viewpoint. Thanks for watching.